My people, we are coming towards the end of our Basic Nigerian History series, and I hope it has been a fun and enlightening ride for you. A lot of you have been telling us to do more videos, talk about culture, dive deeper into a particular area of history, or tell the history of other countries. You have been requesting and we have been listening, whilst looking for ways to achieve this. And finally, I believe we have found one, but we can't do it without your help. We are working with creators from all over Africa and the diaspora to launch our very own edutainment streaming platform. On this platform, you will be able to watch courses on the history and politics of various African nations, as well as take a deep dive into the culture of different ethnic groups and much more. You will be able to get access to all of this content for a small monthly subscription fee. This will help us scale and keep making the fantastic content that you love. It will also allow edutainers from all over Africa to become full entrepreneurs and make a living from the wonderful work of helping to spread knowledge. To kick things off and get you guys acquainted with the platform, we will be releasing the remaining episodes of Basic Nigerian History 1 week early on the platform. And you can watch it over there for free. All you have to do is head over there, click to watch, and if you sign up now, you get the first 30 days for free. We will still be sharing stuff over here on our YouTube channel, but the majority of our content will be on our new platform. And for every paid subscription we get, we are able to gift a subscription to someone who needs it but can't afford it, like a student from a less affluent background. It is time we took charge of our own narrative and tell it the way it deserves to be told. I look forward to seeing you over there. Dr. Catel out. Now, last episode, we discussed the beginning of Babangida's reign and how the structural adjustments program crippled the economy, drove masses into poverty, and caused the mass exodus of professionals from Nigeria, known as the brain drain. This episode, we're going to cover the remaining of Babangida's regime and how it began to upset the nation with its procrastinating ways. Let's begin. So to continue from the previous episode, by the way, we are in the 1986 era of Nigerian history, in case you forgot. Anyways, to continue from where we left off, things were bad. Everyone was being driven into poverty. Those educated professionals that could afford to leave the country did so. Times were hard and corruption was rampant. To be fair though, when is corruption never an issue for us Nigerians? A lot of people turned to religion to help them once again. Fundamental Islam and evangelical Christianity, mainly Pentecostal sects, became a big thing in Nigeria. Charismatic churches popped up in urban areas like Deeper Life and born-again Christians. Religion provided hope for prosperity in this life and the next, with people believing that if things don't go well in this life or they suffer unto the end, at least they will be rewarded with an amazing life in the next. It wasn't all about the next life though. A lot of Christian leaders thought that only prayer could save Nigeria, and maybe through prayer, Nigeria could be reborn as a Christian state with all its problems magically solved like the Europeans. Obviously, we know it's not as simple. The Europeans aren't wealthy because they're Christians. They are wealthy because they exploited all the other nations around them. I just thought I should mention it in case it wasn't clear that I was being sarcastic. Anyways, these Christian groups did manage to pool resources to provide social services that the state could not provide to their community. For example, schools, healthcare, etc. Eventually, they entered into the political arena to lobby government to take care of the needs of Christian people. Here, they met the Islamic organizations that had already been doing this since the early 1970s. And of course, they clashed. Christians lobbied for equal perks like the government-sponsored Muslim pilgrimage scheme so that they also got sponsored pilgrimages to Jerusalem. From 1995 to 1998, nearly 2,500 Christian pilgrims visited Jerusalem each year. In fact, there is a sizable Nigerian community in Jerusalem today. Christian pilgrims also served as cultural ambassadors between Nigeria and Christendom, the same way the Muslim pilgrims did to the larger Islamic world. Okay, so in an effort to get some external help, Babangida tried to develop a Nigerian relationship with the Islamic world. He announced that he had made Nigeria an official member of the Organization of the Islamic Conference. This sparked outrage in Nigeria that he would do such a thing without even consulting the country. Eventually, he had to withdraw his announcement, but the damage had been done. Christians now believed Babangida intended to secretly Islamicize Nigeria. And his withdrawal from the OIC also angered other Islamic areas and led to riots and constant clashes, but mainly in northern Nigeria. In the southwest, things were a lot calmer. Yoruba people were roughly split 50-50 between Christians and Muslims, and competition between the two religious sects had rarely escalated to any kind of violence. As people continued to protest, and the riots against the religious issue and the press continued to criticize him, Babangida's willingness to use violence and oppression to suppress his critics also grew. Any protest was met with violence, and people were killed as troops tried to restore order. There were religious riots in Ilorin, and the next year of 1987, there were religious riots in Kafanchan, Kaduna, Katsina, Funtua, Kano, and of course, Zaria. The next year in 1987, the procedure for transitioning to democratic power was in place. It was called Civilian Rule Decree No. 19. Babangida did not seem to like this. The decree was amended multiple times at his whim. He postponed several elections. He also kept banning different political parties and politicians. He even announced a lifetime ban on all former office holders who had ever been convicted of corruption, and claimed the right to ban anyone else he saw fit. By 1989, the political ban extended to chairmen and members of governmental institutions. They were all banned. They couldn't take part in the political process in any way, i.e. funding, joining, supporting. However, he later lifted the ban. Anyways, we'll continue this when we get to 1991 in our timeline. For now, let's go back to 1987. Babangida went after the press. He had quickly changed the tune from allowing them out and encouraging them to tell both sides of the story to now closing down some media stations and detaining journalists. For example, Delegiwa, the editor of Newswatch, was killed by a letter bomb just days after an interrogation by government operatives, leading people to suspect Babangida of his death. This was bad for Babangida's image. He liked to be known as a man of the people. He was able to salvage some of his reputation when in 1987 he allowed Nigeria to split further into 21 states, giving some of the ethnic groups that had been wanting autonomy what they wanted. In 1988, Babangida announced widespread privatization of 135 enterprises, while students and labor unions joined together to stage anti-SAP riots over the price of fuel. In 1989 to 1991, Sierra Leone and Liberia started bloody civil wars that spilled over into neighboring countries and threatened to destabilize the whole region. In 1989, Liberian Civil War began. Liberian military dictator Samuel Doe was a close ally of Babangida. He was under attack from various militant groups, including MPFL, led by Charles Taylor. Nigeria led ECOWAS peacekeeping missions to negotiate a ceasefire, aid in stemming the growing refugee crisis, which was at that point about 500,000 and counting. The peacekeeping mission was supposed to help with the transition to an interim government. Nigeria provided 70% of the troops and 80% of the funding for the ECO-MOG mission in Liberia. Meanwhile, back home at Nigeria, an assembly completed a new constitution, and in the spring of 1989, Babangida lifted the ban on forming parties. Political activity was again permitted. Around 13 parties applied. NEC, National Electoral Commission, shortlisted 6, but then published a report that it would not recommend any of them as they were all untrustworthy with ties to corrupt politicians. People were like, WTF? In October of 1989, the government established 2 parties, NRC, the National Republican Convention, and SDP, the Social Democratic Party. No other parties were allowed. These parties were created by the government, so they couldn't really criticize the existing regime or address the real problems for fear of being expelled like the others. At the same time, Babangida could ensure no corrupt politician could manipulate the parties. Despite this, some people were still eager to vote because a new program called MAMSA had been educating citizens about the political process and encouraging them to vote. By the way, MAMSA stood for Mass Mobilization for Economic Recovery, Self-Reliance and Social Justice. It's a very long acronym. Personally, I think it's stupid. However, Babangida's slow transition process was just frankly annoying everybody. So, in April of 1990, a few mid-level soldiers unsuccessfully tried to overthrow the government again. This resulted in 69 accused plotters being executed after secret trials. In the same year, Samuel Doe Babangida's dictator friend in Liberia, was successfully abducted from ECOMOG HQ in Monrovia by rebel forces and killed. December 1990, the first stage of elections were held at local government level. There was low turnout but no violence. SDP, the Social Democratic Party, won the majority of local government councils, but not by much. In 1991, the ECOMOG mission had spread to Sierra Leone. Now, they were trying to keep peace there. The mission received encouragement and support from the USA, UN, and OAU. But peace negotiations were long. Within Nigeria, many criticized Babangida for delivering funds away from the country just to help his fellow dictator friends. In 1991, Babangida allowed Nigeria to grow from 27 into 30 states, giving even more groups autonomy. Like I said, he liked to be known as a man of the people. This was around the same time that he also moved the Federal Capital Territory from Lagos to Abuja in order to make it be in a more central location. All that was left now was to find a presidential candidate. State legislative elections were held. Babangida allowed some of the politicians that he had previously banned to compete in the primaries, which were to be in August. He allowed only those not previously convicted of corruption. 23 candidates competed for the two positions. Ya.ardua won for SDP and Adamu Simova won for NRC. However, the result was cancelled because of the fraud allegation and others claiming votes rigging had taken place. Other primaries were also cancelled. In October of 1992, a new election format was selected and all previously announced 23 candidates were then disqualified. Presidential elections was postponed to June 12, 1993, and this time, candidates were to be vetted seriously to determine their suitability. In order to add people to the pool of choices, former chairmen and members of the governmental institutions which he had previously banned were also now unbanned. And I think we'll leave it there for now. Join us in the next episode where we continue discussing the reign of Ibrahim Babangida over Nigeria. As usual, all the mede bibliography in the description below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on the notification bell so that you can know when we upload something new. As I'm sure I mentioned at the beginning of this video, we have released a new platform which is called Africa Story. This platform is aimed at providing authentic African edutainment to you guys, the masses, in a fun and entertaining way. If you guys want to watch it, go over there to our website, check it out, subscribe, support us. It is time we took charge and told our own story.